Hello everyone, June here from Red Daisy Crafts. I'm excited to be here this week to play with the Bikes in Bloom paper pumpkin. We're going to make some alternate cards today. And last week we did an unboxing. If I get these out of the way here, we did the unboxing and we created the 3 cards that the kit was intended to make. You can see here it's got a little foiling on there, and the cards in the kit themselves are really cute and a lot of fun, so you could just make them as they are. However, if you do like to create alternates like I do, come on down and we are gonna do some crafting today. So I hope you'll join us, and we are going to go down to the table and we're going to get started. So let's go ahead and get us down to the table. So let me move these out of the way. Again, if you are not familiar with Paper Pumpkin is a subscription box that comes to your house. You get a full color instructions. It's kind of like IKEA instructions. Everything you need to make the projects in the kit are included in the box. So you don't need anything additional except maybe a pair of scissors, and that'll do it. If you have any questions, let me know. I would love to have you subscribe and join us. All right, so I mentioned last week that I had a card that I had designed. I kind of gave you a little sneak peek of it. So here it is. So we're going to start with this today. And we're going to do it a little bit different, only that I just like to show how it can be done with different cardstock. So I'm going to be using the old olive cardstock for the base. On this one here, I used the Calypso Coral. And so we're going to do that. I am also bringing in from the kit box, I'm bringing in an envelope piece that we'll use. I used it on the inside of the card. So I am using the one with the old olive stripe. Okay. Then we have this piece out of the kit. So this large bicycle die cut. We also have the flower bed and also a little sentiment tag. All right. And then I have 2 pieces of the card bases that we're going to use to create the front layer on the card itself. So I am going to show you how we did that, and we are going to jump right in. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this piece of cardstock. We're going to use a piece that is going to make a card that folds at the top. So it's going to be portrait style. All right. And so I like to go ahead and score my cardstock before I cut it, because it just saves me time and energy later. So I'm going to go ahead and score that, and then I'm going to trim this at 4 1/4. So our card base is 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2 inches. So I'm going to just stick that aside. We don't need that. So that's our card base. Then I mentioned to you that we have an envelope piece that we're going to use for the inside of the card. And this piece is cut at 3 1/4 by 5 inches. So we're going to use this piece here, which I've already cut the top flap off. And we're going to use this space right here to create that inside layer. So I'm going to go ahead and just trim off the little bit off the edge there. The envelope paper is thinner than typical cardstock and the DSP even. And so I do like to kind of start in the middle just because I think it gives you a better chance. Yes, ma'am, Miss Cheryl, we're going to make more bike cards today. So lots of fun. All right, so like I said, we are trimming this down to 3 1/4 by 5 inches. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and do this part here, get that off of there. And then you'll see on here, when you do this, you have these little pieces here that are up. So we're going to get rid of those. All right. And that's how we'll get down to the 5 inches. Okay. So I'm going to just flip this around and then we can cut off this end and no more little weird edges. Okay. So now that will be the inside of our card piece. And then for the front of the card, I have 2 pieces on the top and the bottom that I utilized, okay, and they are 4 inches wide, and the bottom one, I probably cut it at 1.5 inches, and the top one was probably cut at 3.5 inches. So we're gonna kind of repeat that, and I'll show you what I did. All right, so on this one, I want to see where we can get to. We're gonna have this stripe on here, and I'm thinking I might go ahead and cut it this way so we can tear that off and not have that being a part of the card. So let's go ahead. I am going to cut this at 4 inches in this direction, and then at 3.5 here. Okay, so that's our top part of the card. That's going to go right on there. And then I'm going to trim this piece at 1.5 inches right here. And again, these were leftover card bases from making the first card here. And so I am just using the other half of those card bases to make this second card. All right, so that's the bottom portion of that top layer, okay? Now I do need a piece for the inside that I'm gonna cut from that yellow card base. And this piece is 4 inches by 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and cut 3/4 of an inch off here. And then we are going to cut this down to 4 inches. And I don't really care so much if it has that little edge on there because this is more of an accent piece. So I actually think it kind of adds to the character of the inside of the card. So I am totally fine with that little shaded edge on there. So that's going to go right there on the inside. And I think that is everything we needed to trim for our card. So let me just get some of these pieces out of the way. And we will begin to put our card together. So the first thing that we need to do some stamping. And I'm going to have a little white piece here just to be able to help with anything I might want to go off the edge with. So we are going to start out with stamping some butterflies, and we're using the Calypso Coral ink that came in the kit. They call that a Stampin' Spot. Okay, and so we are just putting some butterflies on here, kind of randomly around, and then I'm going to come back in with the other butterflies. So this one was a single butterfly, and I just want to add a few of these around. All right. And so kind of have to remember that you're not going to see everything. So I'm kind of keeping it towards the top and just trying to, you know, keep it, I guess, aesthetically looking well in my mind. All right. And so on this piece, what we're going to do is we're going to tear off this bottom edge. And so, like I said, it didn't really matter to me that that was at the bottom of there because I am going to tear that off. And so I know it's not very noticeable, but you can see that it's torn there and there on the card base. So we're going to have that like that. And then this piece here, we're just going to tear off a little bitty edge of this. And that will just allow some of that green to pop through. Okay. And I'm not going to use these for anything. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of those. All right. So that's what's going to go behind the bike. All right. Now we do need to stamp our sentiment on this little band, kind of like sign that's going to hang on the basket. And I am kind of sticking with the thank you sentiment only because I really don't feel like I do a lot of cards that I need a best wishes sentiment. And the have a lovely day stamp does not fit onto this label. And so we have that. Okay. Now, let's see, did I put something? Yes, I did. So we are going to stamp on the inside of the card. So I'm going to add just a little bit here. So we are going to put the have a lovely day here. Okay. And that is just going to go right on here. I'm going to see if I can get this as straight as I can, because I'll be honest, this stamp is not, it's got some crooked things going on, and I can't decide which ones I want to have straight. So it creates a little bit of a challenge for me personally, because I'm trying to decide what's the best way to do this. So, and then I'm just going to add a little cluster of flowers onto that piece. And you will see once we put it all together that that is just popping up here, just kind of popping up out of the bottom of here. So let's go ahead and start, do one more thing of stamping here. Is we have 3 little spots where we need to put a cluster of flowers, and it's going to be that same one. So this kind of ties everything together. And if you follow the little like white blobs that are on here, you can kind of line up your stamp to fit very nicely in them. And then you just end up with a little halo behind your floral stamp. So like that. And then we're going to turn it another way, and we're going to stamp this one over here. So there you have that. All right, so that's how that ends up looking right there. And we went through that last week, so nothing new there. All right, so let's go ahead and I agree, Cheryl. It just gets everything all wonky. I don't know if there is a wrong, to be honest, but I think we decide there's a wrong because it doesn't look right to us. But yeah, that's why I was like, oh, I don't know. This has got a little bit of a funky edge. So, all right. So we are going to trim this just a tad. And what I am going to do is grab my trimmer one more time. And I wanted to keep the handlebars, okay? in the picture on the front of the card, but this whole piece does not fit. So I knew I was going to need to trim it. So I'm going to just turn this around. Let's see, like this. And I knew that if I wanted the handlebars, I needed to get at least where the handlebar was just barely hitting the cutting trough here. So I am going to just trim off that little piece of the wheel, okay? And then I am going to flip this over like so. And I'm going to put this down at 4 inches. And then I'm going to trim off a portion of this little basket, okay? So I'm just trimming off that little piece. Really doesn't take away a whole lot, but, you know, wanted you to see what that looks like. All right, and then I know this piece is going to go on here like so, and that I have like 1/4 of an inch of room before this is going off the card. So I am also going to go ahead and trim that piece off, just so it makes it easy and clean, okay? So there is what we end up with when we put our pieces down on the card. So just that part is ready to roll. I'm going to grab some of the linen thread, which I'm just going to grab what I have here because oh, here's the little one that came in the kit. All right, I was going to say, I don't know if I know what I did with that. All right, so you know, when we made the first card with the card design, it just said to go around 1 time, but I really like layers. And so I am going to go ahead and wrap this around a couple of times, okay? And so I'm trying to estimate what I need because I also want to cut this off of here so I can work with it. So I am just going to give myself a little bit of extra so there's no question. And I have plenty to work with. All right, so I'm going to just push this through here. And I'm going to have that going around like that. And I always try to hold my thread with my thumb like that whenever I'm wrapping things around, okay? And so I'm just going to go around one more time to here. And then I can see that I have way more than I needed, but that's okay. And then we're going to tie a bow right here. So I have this here, and I am going to go ahead and tuck my tail under the other string, and that's going to help me just tie both of these together here. And I'm just going to go ahead and do a knot. That way it gets tacked down really good where I want it. So that's that. And then I will tie a bow like so. And then we can kind of play with it and get the tails and the bow part the way we want it. So there's that. But now I can kind of separate this a little bit on this end and a little bit over here. But because we have tied them together there, it makes a nice, holds it together very nicely. Now I am going to grab a glue dot, and I think we got some in the kit, so I'm going to try and see if I can grab those. So here we go. And for this, I like to just stick it onto my finger like that and take the little cover off of it. And then I can roll it up into like a little burrito on my finger, and then I can just stick that right behind here to tack that little bow in place. Okay, so that's what we end up having right there. And now everything is nicely tacked down. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and trim off this little excess here because it was hanging pretty long. And for that, we're going to set that aside while we do the other pieces of our card. So I am going to go ahead and burnish this score line and just make sure I have it folding straight. Okay. And I do tend to like to put together the inside of my card first. So I'm going to get my liquid glue out, and we'll get some glue on here, and then we will tack this down. Now I understand like this is not like the typical like even on all sides, but we are going to add this little piece down here at the bottom. And but I wanted as much of this that we could get, and you cannot get the 4 inches out of the space on the envelope that is really needed for this area. So we are improvising. So again, that was 3.5 by 5 inches. And this little piece here is 3/4 of an inch by 4 inches. And so that's our inside of our card. I'm going to grab a little bit of water and then we'll continue. Thank you. All right, so I have these little pieces that I tore. You know, we trimmed them, and then we used the card base in the kit. We trimmed them down, and then we did a little tearing. So we end up with this little kind of gap in there. Okay, now these are going to get glued down. Okay, and they don't show that much, but I just think it adds another little level of layer and texture to the card and gives it some interest, as opposed to just having all one color layer going on. I love the idea of the yellow, which is just a lighter form of crushed curry at the top, because, you know, we have sunny skies with our butterflies flying around. And then you could say this is, you know, sand or a little road or something, but we got our little grass in between. So I think it works out really nicely. So let's just get that glued down. And then we're going to add our little die cut. Okay. And I've cut it down to fit perfectly right on top of here. Okay. And it is going to go all the way to the bottom. Okay. The one thing I didn't trim off is this little part of the wheel, because it doesn't really hang off. So I'm just leaving it alone because I didn't think it was necessary. And it would get like a really funky straight edge right there. And I think that would look weird. So I think that this looks great. We have our butterflies coming up out of there. And so I think this is perfect. All right, we are going to put dimensionals on the back of here and get this added to the card front. Okay. And Now, when we add this, we are going to add it with some dimensionals. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of place them while I have it here and can see where the other dimensionals are so that we don't end up with multiple layers. Okay. And so now that will give that necessary coverage, and we can layer it on top of there without any need for additional postage. So let's go ahead and take off all these little dimensional covers, and then we can put this layer down. Did everybody enjoy their 4th of July holiday? Did anybody do anything fun or different or new? We did not really do anything. I like to be home on the 4th because our neighborhood is kind of crazy with fireworks, and I like to be here for that. So we went to visit family the day before. All right, so let's go ahead and add our little bushel of flowers onto here, like so. And did I get that in the right spot? I feel like it's, there we go. And then let's see, because I feel like that's off the edge just a smidge. So I am going to trim this down here, which, there we go. Now it's not hanging off too much. Probably would have been fine, but I think this is cleaner looking. Okay. So now we have like all these layers and a really fun peekaboo here. Like, it's just all the things that you got going on here. I think it's really fun. We are going to add this with a couple of dimensionals. There are no dimensionals here in the space, so we should not have any issue with that either. But this is going to just go on right here. I like to get all my little bow pieces out of the way before I stick this down, and that's going to go there. And there we go. And that is our first alternate. Thank you, Cheryl. Yeah, I think it's fun. You know, it's very difficult. I think I'm finding like these big die cut pieces are kind of a little bit hard to decide what to do. And so we are going to continue to see what happens. But so this is same card basically, but two different back, you know, base card colors. But I like how it ends up here. Oh no, Wanda, I'm sorry you're having trouble. I'm glad you're here though, and that you made it on your phone. I'm not sure what's going on today. Are you guys having bad weather? Oh, thank you. You know, you'll be able to see the replay if you missed anything. So, yep. All right, so we're going to move on to the next card. And this one is something I saw Karen Titus make. It's kind of a pop-up easel. And so it looks like this out of the card, out of the envelope. But this actually pops up. You can write a message in there. But this just stands up like that. And it's hard to see. But but it just stands up like that. And so this is just a different kind of fold that I think is kind of cool. And again, we are taking some of these big die cuts and figuring out how to use them. And so this one, we are going to kind of make the same card, but I am using the other half of the bike. Okay, so now we're going to make one with this part of the bike. And so you can see, you know, we're getting 2 cards out of that one die cut or image piece. Oh no, you got a new iPad. I know when you get new stuff, it's always hard to get used to how they work. So I have one of the envelopes, which we will use to create some of the layers on the card. So we're going to use it to make these 2 layers here. Okay, so we have that. I have the other half of the card base that I used for this part up here. And once again, I will be dealing with this stripe, but I feel like if I put it down here, it isn't going to really be that noticeable, so it'll be fine. So that'll work out fine. And then this is a piece of a card base that I had that we're going to use to do this layer. This is a piece of white, basic white cardstock. Okay. And I'll get to the measurements in just a second, but I have a part of the envelope flap here that I have that piece. This is a die cut from the kit, and I have the little plant on the back of the bike. And I also have this little piece here, which you will see whenever we cut these pieces out of the envelope, I end up with a score line here. And I just thought it was a fun way to kind of cover that up. Not that a score line would have been terrible, but I do think it would have been noticeable. And I just think this makes it a lot more fun. So, and it brings in more of the old olive from up here and just things like that. So, so we are going to go ahead and get started putting this together. So we have a regular card base here of 5.5 by 8.5 that we're going to need to score. And it's going to get scored at 2 1/8. And then again at 4 1/4. Okay. So 2 1/8 and then 4 1/4. Okay. All right. Then we're going to need, out of the envelope, we're going to need 2 pieces that are 1 7/8 by 5 1/4. Okay. And I am choosing to use this part of the envelope to get that. Is that what I did? No, I did it the long way. That's why I had the score line. All right, got to get my thoughts together before we get going. There we go. All right, let me just trim off this little edge here, and we'll get this opened up. Because I needed it to be 5 1/4 inches wide, I had to think differently, because I could get the 1 7/8 here, but I couldn't get 2 of them. And then I would have this thing over here, which would be different because I have this white spot in the middle. But if they both have a white spot on them, then I can make that work. So I ended up opening it up like this. Okay. And then I trimmed, I trimmed off this edge here. So I got that out of the way. Okay. And then I went ahead and cut this down to 5 1/4. and you will see that I have this little piece over here that I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with that? But I did. Right here is that little piece that we're going to end up with, and I just stamped on it. And it has the same little piece over here, and you don't even think it's a part of it anymore. So it's going to work out. You watch. All right, so we are going to just trim off a little bit of an edge here so I get rid of these extra layered pieces here. And then I'm going to do 1 7/8 right here. And then I'm going to flip it around and I'm going to cut 1 7/8 on this side. Oh, I got to trim that off first. We would have really had a mess then. So first get rid of the extra. And now we can do the 1 7/8. So all I was doing is cutting off those pieces that are overlapping on the envelope piece so that we could get rid of that extra edge there. You know, there's a couple of layering things there. So now we have our 2 pieces, and I have one little box on each of them. I ended up flipping them around so that the score lines were in different places. Okay. And this is extra. I'm just putting it in my little extra box. And then I took this piece here and I cut it to 1 7/8. And then I cut this in half. And like that. So I had these 2 little tiny strips that will just go over those score lines, and they just add a little extra interest to the card. All right, so this little piece here, like I said, came from the envelope. One of the flaps on one of the envelopes. So one of the flaps is this color, and this piece is cut to 3 inches by 3/4 of an inch. Okay. And then I have the sentiment strip or die cut from the kit. This one is 7 inches by 3.5 inches. Okay, and we're going to score that at 3.5. All right, so we got that piece. And then this piece is 3.25 square. So this is one of the card base pieces. Okay. So that's what that piece is. It gets layered on top of here. All right. And we have our little plant die cut. And then we're going to go ahead and cut this down to 4 inches. And then trim it to 5.25. And we'll have that cut off there. So, all right, so that's that piece. Then we have our bike, okay? And so I have a piece here that I want it to be square by this width, okay? And this width is, 2 5/8 is what we have. So I want to keep as much of the bike as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and trim off as much as I can to the top of that little plant. Okay. And to be honest, I could probably cut lower because honestly, this is going to go on top of here. And so anything I cut off of the plant is still going to be taken care of. So I do think I'm going to go ahead and cut down just I think I'm going to take 1/4 off up here. And that's going to be just fine because that's going to go on top of there and nobody's going to know. So now I need this to be 3 1/4. And so look at that. I almost have the whole bottom of the bike. That worked out smashingly. I would say much better than this one. How it comes together. You know, this versus that. Oh wait. We still have to trim some off. We still do. How did I not know that? What is this? 2 5/8. What did I do? Oh my goodness. 3 1/2 is what I did. Or 3 1/4. So I need 2 5/8. That gets me to there. I could take a little more of the plant off. Just so I get past this little piece here. So let's go ahead and just take a little more of the plant off. And now let's see, there we go. There we go. That's better. And now it fits right. All right, so this is what's going to go on here. And that's going to go right there. It'll be just fine. And interesting how we work with all the little pieces in the kit. All right, so we have all of our pieces cut, but we're going to need to do a little bit of stamping. Okay, so we have that, and on here we are going to do thank you on here. I could have got some other stamps out, but I'm just sticking with this kit. You know, to have some variety, like happy birthday or something, but I think it's fine. I'm doing that. And then we need to, so on this one, I did stamp some butterflies, but there really is not room for that on here. So I'm going to skip that on this one. Okay, so I'm going to set that over here. But I did stamp butterflies on here and flowers onto this piece. So let's go ahead and do that. So I have my butterfly here. Oh, I'm glad you like this. So I'm going to put one up here. And then let me add one over here. And let's see. Maybe I can put one right here. And then let's add this butterfly into the mix. So let's just have one right there. And then one down here. And then maybe one right here. And we'll see how that ends up going. So, because we're going to end up with something on here kind of like that. So this gets folded. Let me go ahead and burnish this. And that's going to go there. Yeah, I could have made that one higher, but I think this is fine. I think this is fine. All right, so then this little guy is going to go on here with this per little piece and then this added. Oh yeah, that's gonna look good. Very cute. All right, so that's that piece. Now let's go ahead and do our stamping on here. Now I do want my little extra paper here because I do stamp off the page with this one. So the first thing I want to do is take care of my little piece up here that I have that extra space of like a blank piece there, and kind of take that out of the view. And then we have one that's gonna go kind of like that, and then we'll put one down here like that. And then that is that one. So now let me do this one. So I'm going to put one down here. And then I had one over here that is kind of going off like that. And I think that takes care of that. I did put a butterfly onto the thank you. Let's see if I can do that at this point, so we're not trying to do it later. But we'll put that right there. There we go. All right. So I think that's all the pieces that we need to stamp. Close up our ink. I'm going to get a drink. Yes. Yes, Wanda, because I go through all of the dimensions as I'm going along, and I think it's actually it's easier than it looks. Okay. Which I think it'll be very easy. So we're going to add these little strips right over the little score lines. Hello, Miss Nicole. How are you today? Glad you get to catch me. I am, again, we are just really, this is just adding a little extra interest. It's covering up that score line that we had, you know, and it just helps to make this a little bit more interesting. All right, so we are going to go ahead and burnish this here. And then this one is going to go back this way. All right, and so it's going to sit like this is how it does. All right. And so we can go ahead and start to put these together. So this piece is going to go here. Just like that. Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry. I'm glad. Yeah, go back and watch. It was just unboxing. There's not a there. I didn't get time to do anything more than the unboxing last week, Wanda. So just to let you know that. And but the cards are really cute, just as they are. It's just such a fun summer. I think this is such a fun summer kit. I mean, if you have little kids, oh my gosh, this would be so fun. You'd have so much fun. All right. So I feel like this is quite crooked, but I think it's the lines. I don't know. It's kind of funny. All right, so let's go ahead and put this piece down now. All right. And so that's going to go just like that. So I'm going to just flip this over. There we go. So that's how it kind of closes up for the envelope, okay? So now we have this piece here. So let's go ahead and put all this together. And so this piece is going to go right on top of here. And then we're going to add this right on top of here. I really think these came out really cute. It's just an interesting way of, you know, cutting down an image that we were given and I'm getting 2 cards out of it. So that's kind of fun. That did not feel centered. So there. All right, so we have that. Now this is going to get put on here like that. All right. So let's go ahead and glue that piece down. Okay, so this is how we need the stopper. So it is literally going to be right at the edge where this is going to go. So what I did on the other one was I put these 2 pieces together. Okay, and on this side. So it's gonna go like that. Oh my gosh, it's smelling really good over here. My husband is making broccoli and cheddar soup, and it really smells good. You had a birthday supper for your son-in-law. Oh, that sounds so nice. For sure. That's more important than this. That's for sure. All right. So we are going to put this on with some dimensionals. And we are going to put them towards the bottom of here. All right. And because we want a place for our little card, that the pop-up piece, for it to come into that space, right? So we're going to have it like that. So it's going to kind of go right there like that. And so I am going to move it up just a tad because it actually is hiding this piece, but not a whole lot. And but that's how it goes together. And it just kind of stands up like that, like an easel does. right? I could move it up a little bit. I'm going to see if I can accomplish that without wrecking the whole thing. There we go. Because now that covers it. And now that sits very nicely. There we go. Because it won't actually cover up the bike whenever it's sitting there. It'll just be that into that green line right there. And so that's going to work out really nice. So it's a really kind of an interesting design because the stopper will be covered by this layer piece. But then it will stand up very nicely when you open it up. So really kind of a cute design. Clever, different than what I've seen before. So now let's just add some dimensionals to this piece here. And then we are going to add some of those little pretty butterflies they gave us in the kit. And I have some Wink of Stella that I want to add to the plant. So we are going to just have this here like that. So I want to put, what I did on the other one was I just kind of went over the lines of the plant just to kind of draw your eye to it. So I'm not really wanting this to be like super wet with the Wink of Stella. And you'll see on here, I just did it on the lines of it. It's so hard to see in the camera. Maybe just a tad there. So you can see that's all we did here was go over the black lines on the plant. Okay. And then I have these really cute butterflies that we're going to add to it. So let's just go ahead and let's see here. I'm going to put one up here. And then let's add one right here. And then we'll put one down here. And that's that card. So let's put them in the right order. Look at that. Those are cute, aren't they? And this one piece was one. Just easy way to utilize some of the pieces. So if you are like me and you really like to make the alternates and stretch your kit, you can do that. All right. Okay, I have one more, but it's already an hour. Maybe we should just wait till next time on this one. But I have another easel card. I'll give you a sneak peek. This is the other easel card I made. Okay. So we'll make this one next week. And I think I have enough to come up with maybe one or two more cards, but they're probably going to be super, super simple. So super simple because I have very few pieces left. So I will see what else we can make with them. But thank you for joining me today. I hope you like the cards we made. I really think they came out really cute. So this was the first one. And this was the second one. So very, very fun. I hope you guys had a great 4th of July weekend. Thank you to everybody that participated in my group in the trivia. That was a lot of fun. And I'll be announcing a winner soon. I ended up with 6 people, I think, in the closed group, 6 people that ended up getting all 20 right. So that was fun. But there were like 48 people that had answered throughout the day. So that was really, really awesome. So, yeah, I just thought it was fantastic. So I'll be announcing a winner there soon, and then I have one also for the business page as well. Um, so look for that in a few minutes. Bye, everybody. See you next Sunday. Have a great week.